My girlfriend blocked me after I tried to surprise her with breakfast, yet I was the one who always stayed up late for her. After 1.5 years of constantly trying to fix things, all I got was this: "You don't make me happy." Now I'm left devastated and confused. What do I do next? This is going to be a lengthy post. I began dating her approximately 1.5 years ago. I would like to share some of my personality traits first. I am a highly sensitive and emotional person who is significantly affected by those who are close to me. Human relationships hold immense importance for me, and I cannot tolerate seeing people I care about becoming distant. Now to the story. We worked for the same company, lived in the same apartment, and met while commuting to the office. That is when we started talking as strangers. We became friends and took walks together after work every day. As we progressed, naturally there were differences. I realized she had more of an avoidant style, was less sensitive, and exhibited emotional and mental rigidity. To put it simply, in my previous relationship, I was with someone who responded to emotions like I did, but this experience was different, and I noticed this from several instances even before we began dating when we were still just friends. For instance, as a soft person, I find it difficult to engage in confrontations and intense discussions due to the fear of being rude. However, she was quite different from the beginning. She often insisted on maintaining her viewpoint during discussions and did not seem concerned about how her words would affect me. She appeared unaffected by it. This created an emotional gap since I typically prioritize others' feelings during any discussion or argument. Another instance occurred during our friendship phase when she was returning to the city from her home, and I asked her if I could visit to pick her up from the airport at 5 a.m. She declined, stating it was not necessary even after multiple suggestions from me. I did not press the issue, as it might have appeared pushy at that stage. However, I still wanted to make a special gesture, so I got her breakfast and decided to surprise her at the entrance of my apartment early in the morning as she arrived. It was 6 a.m. when I was waiting, and here she came. As soon as she stepped out, I offered to take her luggage, but she seemed cold and irritated and did not allow me to help. She walked away to the lift and rudely told me she did not want breakfast, ignoring me entirely and heading straight home. I texted her about having breakfast together, but she declined and expressed her upset feelings because I did not show up at the airport. I mention this instance to provide some context regarding her personality. Nevertheless, as we advanced in our relationship, I enjoyed her company and we had a great time. I appreciated her spirituality, which drew me to her. She often shared her spiritual beliefs and practices, which she adopted after her last relationship, and this connection resonated with me as I had been seeking spiritual growth and wanted a partner who could complement that journey. Things were going well, and I proposed to her 2 months after we became friends, taking my time with it. Our honeymoon phase was enjoyable, filled with light banter and fun. However, as we moved forward, differences emerged once again. Firstly, regarding emotions, I found that she would be rude whenever she became angry. She would often call me derogatory names like fuck off, fuck you, stupid man, and asshole during her angry moments. I realized she had anger issues and could be extremely harsh with me during such moments. This emotional outburst was overwhelming for me, given my sensitive nature. I have never used curse words or raised my voice during arguments. I noticed that I primarily took on the responsibility of calming conflicts, while she would often place blame on me. I acknowledge that I am not perfect, but there could be two things. 1. Helping and inspiring your partner to improve. 2. Merely pointing out your partner's problems for them to deal with on their own. I often employed the first approach, but I found that she frequently highlighted my shortcomings during fights and occasionally threatened to leave if I did not correct them. At times, I felt like I was being critiqued by my manager rather than supported by my partner. This pattern repeated itself, and I noticed my confidence dwindling, which was evident in other areas of my life, including work. Friends and colleagues noticed the change. I began to doubt myself because I was constantly told that all the problems lay with me. My sensitivity and softness proved to be a weakness in this situation. Regardless of our disputes and the blame game, my intention was always to resolve issues and focus on the positives in our relationship. On the other hand, I encouraged her to become a better version of herself and appreciated even her smallest gestures and efforts. I do not expect much from people, so even minor gestures mean a lot to me, but she had high expectations, which sometimes made me feel inadequate. After a few months, she secured a job in another city and left the company we both worked for. She began earning a higher salary than I did, which led to long-distance challenges. This situation further complicated our relationship. I was unable to support her during her initial settling phase due to my interviews for schools. She blamed me for not being there when she needed me. I felt guilty, but I had my reasons. I visited her after 1 to 2 weeks, and she confronted me for being incompetent. While I admitted that I could not come and accepted my fault, things felt good again during the 7 days I was with her. However, even during this time, she raised concerns that we were not a suitable couple and made statements like that. While I sometimes found this negative, I continued to maintain faith in our relationship despite the challenges. I asked her to have faith in us as well while navigating obstacles together, instead of doing so separately. As the long-distance relationship progressed, we found it increasingly difficult to address conflicts and disagreements. She would cut calls, occasionally block me, or call me names during discussions. While the good times were enjoyable, the tough times were harsh from her end. She was intolerant of my mistakes and would become angry over trivial matters, calling me hurtful names. When I expressed my concerns about her behavior, she justified her anger based on my actions and insisted I needed to address my issues to improve our situation. Moreover, whenever I shared my emotions or concerns, she dismissed them as me merely seeking attention and self-pity. After every conflict, I was often the one attempting to resolve issues and restore her good mood about 80% of the time. Some of her complaints included being more action-oriented, listening rather than just hearing, not sharing details with my mother since once I shared a picture with her. She accused me of being miserly because we had previously decided to split the costs for outings or dates, becoming insecure or possessive during the early stages of our long-distance relationship, and not gifting her as many presents as she wanted, which made her feel misaligned in the long distance. I acknowledged and took ownership of some of these issues. I started working on them. I tried to be more open about our relationship with my family and close friends, surprised her with gifts and dinners after realizing that gifts were her love language, and stopped tracking any financial contributions. Yet I realized she would revisit past issues during our arguments, labeling me as miserable and bringing up incidents that occurred a year prior. She often asked why she was with someone like me. Despite these efforts, I felt unappreciated for my small contributions and often faced severe backlash for any of my mistakes. I became more cautious in my words and actions due to the fear of her anger. Yet her failure to appreciate my efforts hurt me deeply, as did her disrespectful words during our fights. Meanwhile, I dedicated myself to making the relationship work. There were moments when I considered walking away, but if I had done so, the relationship likely would not have survived. I never gave up on us and ensured I encouraged her when it came to our relationship, always urging us to work on things together. As time passed, I realized she was also very critical of other people, which could explain why she punished me so harshly for my weaknesses. She had few friends, making it difficult for her to form bonds. She had poor relationships with her flatmate from my city, departed on unfavorable terms with her manager at my company, and did not get along well with her new workplace manager. When she met my friends or brother, she would often express that she found them boastful or delusional based on something they said. Her critical nature was hard for my friends and brother to hear coming from my partner. Whenever I missed a call while at home, she would fault me, claiming that my family and job were my priorities, not her. Recently, she encountered problems with her manager and filed a human resources complaint against her boss. It was a tumultuous experience for her, as her boss put her on a performance plan for 2 months. I supported her during this time with strategic advice and also pointed out some of her antisocial tendencies that had contributed to her predicament to prevent a recurrence. However, she perceived me as an attacker and dismissed my input, stating I was of no use. She claimed that no one understood her in this world, not me, not her boss, and no one else. As I mentioned, she would often disown me during my mistakes and tough times, which took a toll on me. Nevertheless, breaking up was not an option for me. However, she continually expressed that I should not be with her and that I did not make her happy. These statements added to my pressure. I undertook all the convincing, focusing on the positives. She was extremely loyal and trustworthy. Though I had become possessive early on, that changed due to this quality of hers. She cared for me during my moments of poor health and remained committed to the relationship. When she began contemplating marriage and was earning a higher salary, she insisted I find a better-paying job to persuade her parents about our union. She outlined non-negotiables, such as not wanting any interference from my parents after marriage and desiring to live independently. She inquired about my plans for purchasing a house or a car after our marriage. In the past few months, we had ongoing arguments over various issues. On her birthday in February, I could not visit due to my uncle's 25th anniversary, but I sent her a cake and a necklace, which she again did not appreciate and called me useless. After speaking with her sister, she informed me that she would not break up with me since her family was not enthusiastic about our relationship. She has since blocked me and has not contacted me since. I have attempted to call, sent gifts, and written letters, but there has been no response. I tried to persuade her and even visited her city to meet her, but she did not respond. She threatened that she would involve the police if I continued to reach out. Regardless of everything, I loved her with all my heart and breaking up was never an option for me. Admittedly, I had my shortcomings as well, but I wanted us to work as a team to resolve our issues. I have made considerable efforts to reconcile. She does not wish to talk anymore. I find myself reminiscing about the good moments rather than our differences, and I want her back despite everything. I miss her deeply. At times, I feel guilty about my mistakes and do not know how to cope. I became too emotionally reliant on her and I feel broken. I long for the good times and want her back, but none of my attempts have been successful. I resent myself for causing her sadness and making her cry at times, and it hurts to think that I was not enough. I understand she was not perfect, and I did not expect perfection from her since I am not perfect either. I wanted both of us to uplift one another in a healthy manner. To me, that was a relationship, and I did my utmost to support her in that regard. I know she had her issues, but I genuinely wanted to help. I never rejected her flaws, instead I aimed to provide support. Considering the entire situation, I seek a third perspective on this matter. What can I do from here? What could I have done differently, and what is the path forward as I had envisioned this for a lifetime and never anticipated this outcome? Thank you in advance. Story 2. I'm 42 and in a draining relationship with my 38-year-old girlfriend who makes promises like, I can cook lunch for you, but delivers only 20% of the time. You don't take a no for an answer, she says, while I scramble to meet her every need. Should I walk away? Firstly, I apologize. This might very well end up as an incoherent rant, as my feelings are still quite raw. I have lived with my girlfriend for almost 4 years now. She does not work. She has issues such as borderline personality disorder, depression, and social anxiety, which make maintaining a steady job very difficult. In theory, the agreement is that instead she takes care of the household, including cleaning, cooking, and so forth, while I go to work to earn all the money. In practice, she has not properly cleaned the apartment for years, and her cooking is perhaps 30% of the time, with many other responsibilities falling on me. She is often very eager to say things like, I should clean this up, and I do believe on some level she wants to, but 3 years later there is still just a pile of disorganized trash and junk. Or perhaps she makes hopeful promises like, I can make you lunch to take to work every day, which has maybe 20% success in reality. Sure, I could press her and remind her more about these things or keep demanding them every day, but it is something I truly dislike doing, especially because whenever I try to even gently address an issue like that, instead of having an understanding and decent conversation, it tends to sour her mood for the rest of the day if she does not explode outright. So either way, it is just not something I want to deal with. We live in Japan and neither of us is a native speaker, but I am more fluent, so I often take time off from work to accompany her to dentist appointments, doctor's visits, immigration meetings, or any similar situation. It is not just due to language barriers, but also because of her social anxiety, among other things, and I genuinely want to help her. I also end up managing all the paperwork, bills, and other responsibilities. I genuinely do not mind taking care of her if she actually followed through on the things she promises to do. In many ways, it is not the end of the world to look after her, even if sometimes the dependency feels somewhat unhealthy. However, I already struggle with my own motivation issues to the extent that I can barely take care of myself. Thus, the most challenging aspect is when she behaves like a petulant child, making it far more exhausting to handle. It feels as though she does not want to be cared for, and I have to expend 3 times the energy to manage her. For instance, a few days ago, at her request, I took her to a nearby dermatologist. I wanted to arrive there as soon as they opened because I wanted to get to work on time. I was unsure how long it might take, but I knew it could be cutting it close. I woke her up 20 minutes before our scheduled arrival, and her first words were in a nasty tone. Why are you waking me up 20 minutes before we need to be somewhere that takes 3 minutes to walk to? In the end, she arrived 7 minutes late. She never apologized for either of those things, and she gets irritable if I attempt to hurry her up. I also have to drag her to the dentist. I do not believe I really need to be there, but I do not think she would go by herself. The reason I urge her to make the visits is that she does not take care of her teeth. She literally had to have one rotten tooth extracted because she refuses to brush her teeth at all. She keeps saying she just forgets, but I have reminded her countless times. Not to mention, pretty much every day I tell her, okay, I am going to go brush my teeth. But today was the most recent breaking point. We were supposed to see a psychiatrist. We go to the same place at the same time, so it was not just me dedicating my time to take care of her. I am going for ADHD and she is there for depression, anxiety, and so on. In the morning, she experienced nausea and had not slept well. Many times, I essentially have to fight with her to get her to go to any appointment. Instead of discussing it on the days prior when we agreed on the appointments, and I usually remind her multiple times about them, the conflict always arises 5 minutes before we are supposed to leave the house when we are both groggy and pressed for time. I do not think that is so important. I really do not want to go. I do not feel good. to the point that even if it is a crucial doctor's appointment, I have to push her hard until it turns into a fight. Usually I have to give up and then go apologize to the doctors and reschedule. Even when I manage to get her to go, we have been late many times due to this. So okay, she was not feeling well, fine, it happens. But with her this occurs frequently for various reasons. In the case of the psychiatrist, they know us, so I have handled everything for her in the past. I went by myself, explained everything to the doctor, offered some white lies regarding why she could not come, and he simply continued her medication and provided the prescription. This time, however, the doctor wanted to reduce the medication but did not want to do so without her consent. So I tried calling her multiple times. She did not answer. This has been a point of frustration for me for a while because there have been many instances where I have tried to reach her and I just cannot. It becomes very frustrating. There have been numerous situations where I do not even know where she is, and I am worried about her, yet she will not answer phone calls or messages for hours. For example, recently I was heading to a remote supermarket on my way back home from work, which again should be her responsibility, but I was trying to be nice and make it easier for her, and was trying to call her to find out what we had in the refrigerator so I would not buy unnecessary extra items. Once again, no answer. This is a recurring pattern. 80% of the time I call her, I cannot reach her, even in emergencies, even if I call her on the phone or through multiple platforms. As a side note, often I find it easier to take on some of her duties because if I even gently urge her to handle them, she reacts badly and becomes impossible to communicate with. Now, it would be somewhat understandable if it were merely an honest mistake, such as being in the bathroom and unable to hear the phone ring, but it just keeps happening. So, after the supermarket incident, I wanted to finally and definitively understand why it was so difficult to reach her. It appears that she has her ringtones completely off without vibration. I spoke with her and asked if it was acceptable to adjust the phone settings so at least my ringtone could come through. I have told her many times that I genuinely want to be able to contact her in case something immediate arises and asked her to address it, but she simply dismissed it. Therefore, I only call her when I truly need to get her attention right away, which is not often. Often does the same to me much more regularly when I am at work, such as the day before when she called me to ask a random math question. I did set up a custom ringtone just for me, however later she was unhappy about it because I was messing with her phone, despite having asked for permission, and we had a mild argument. Initially, she claimed I was shouting at her and just grabbed her phone without permission, but she later retracted those accusations, only to bring them back later. There are many instances where her account of events is not only extreme, but also internally contradictory. Fast forward to our discussion about the call concerning the doctor's appointment. After explaining the situation, I messaged her the reason for my calls and asked, "Did we not set up the ringing for you or did you not wake up to it?" And she simply replied, "I do not know." It turned out that after the last time I set up the custom ringtone, she had silently turned it back off and then lied about it. When I spoke to her face-to-face about this, her defense was, "You do not accept no as an answer, so I just agreed with you and then later turned it off." I believe I would accept a no as an answer. However, I would first like to discuss it, especially since her only reason for not wanting to have a ringtone on, at least for me, is that she does not want her phone to make noises. As a side note, she has an alarm that rings every day to remind her of one thing on Wednesdays, but when I mentioned it, her response was, "Okay, I will turn off the alarm, problem solved." When I pointed out that this does not make sense if she has been fine with her phone making surprise noises every day and that I call her maybe once every 2 months, her answer was literally, "Oh yes, because it does not make sense to you, I have to agree with everything you say. I am not obligated to respond to you," followed by, "Oh, the little prince just wants other people to do everything he tells them to." This is a person who often claims that if I do something she perceives as negative, my true intentions do not matter, only how she feels about it counts. There is some slight truth to this in a sense, but we are discussing situations where I genuinely have the best intentions, and I am fairly certain that 99% of people would be okay with it. The issue is that this sentiment goes only one way. When I do something wrong unintentionally, she demands an apology. No, a mere apology is not sufficient. When I remind her of this viewpoint and express that I am bothered by something she does, either I deserved it or her excuses are immediately contradictory and nonsensical or akin to, "Well, I do not want to, you cannot force me." I am not perfect, but I genuinely attempt to discuss issues calmly and then find mutually agreeable solutions that are not simply, "I do not want to." Of course, for brevity, I am omitting all the positive aspects of the relationship and only presenting my perspective. Her childlike nature, for example, comes with an adorable way of approaching things with wonder and excitement, and her strong feelings have both ups and downs. Without delving too deeply into the details, one risk is that I might appear to be pretending as if I am a saint, but I can respond to questions more comprehensively and explain the areas where I believe I have erred. Even if these are small issues on their own, they feel like they are building up and accumulating, so I attempted to provide some additional context for why I am feeling this way. There is much more to discuss as well, so I apologize if this ended up being quite lengthy. Honestly, I do not have high hopes for anyone responding. We have also tried couples therapy, and she is attending both a psychiatrist and a therapist. Even if some of the initial edges have mostly smoothed out, it feels like the underlying issues remain largely unchanged. Things have not improved significantly for a couple of years now. We have had many serious discussions and near breakups, and following those, she often begins acting very positively for a while. She might even acknowledge how she was wrong about everything and seek my forgiveness, only to revert to old habits a couple of weeks or months later and complain that I always force her to apologize and agree with me. I simply do not want to continue this cycle, but I am unsure what else to do to salvage the relationship. I am also concerned that if I just talk to her about all of this, it will be the fifth or sixth similar serious conversation in which I have always given her the benefit of the doubt and chosen to give her another chance hoping things would improve. At this point, I am genuinely contemplating giving up on her. Due to my own issues, as I mentioned, I feel like I can barely take care of myself, making it challenging to support someone who does not take any of her limited responsibilities seriously, cannot care for herself, and makes my efforts to support her a nightmare. She is supposed to take care of me and the household as well, but instead, she becomes a significant energy drain, and it may just be too much for me to handle at this moment.